us. But I think, we were always previously using templates, so we always had that. So I think the key benefit to us that we've identified was that the change in that when we've come up with issues or we've improved specific frameworks or patterns, we've been able to provide that through intent with base upgrades that the teams have been able to leverage immediately, instead of previously on previous templates of ours that we were building, that we were having to manually retrofit those improvements, or they'd have to start again, or any new application would benefit from that, but previous ones wouldn't. So I think ultimately that's been our huge benefit for us from a time saving, and while with technology, it's forever changing, you're forever improving your frameworks or adding new features or patterns, and you're able to easily drive that through the applications that are hosted on intent.
Hi everyone, Skalk and Gareth here from Intent Architect. As always, Gareth is phoning in from Amsterdam, and I'm calling in all the way from Johannesburg in South Africa. And we're very excited to welcome you to another Intent Architect case study interview. And joining us today is Craig Hall, a senior DevOps architect at a company called the Foschini Group, otherwise known as TFG. And Craig is joining us from Cape Town in South Africa. Welcome, Craig, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Skalk, and thanks, Gareth, for having me today.
So just to quickly introduce Craig, Craig has more than 25 years of experience as a software engineer and architect. He spent the last 20 years working for the technology division at TFG called TFG Infotec, and they essentially enable IT excellence across a large part of the group. And TFG, in a nutshell, is a large South African and international retail enterprise with over 30 brands spread across multiple continents and countries, such as the UK and Australia. So Craig, maybe for starters, and before I hand you over to Gareth, do you mind giving us a high-level feel for what it is you guys do at TFG Infotec?
Yeah, sure. So TFG Infotec is really the IT department for the Foschini Group. We have a number of departments servicing all our brands on the application integration front, from stores, from HR to retail to logistics. And ultimately, TFG Infotec delivers all the solutions and applications and support on the technology stack.
Great. Craig, just want to say thanks again for joining us today. We've been working with you guys for just under a year now, and it's been really great to see how you guys have taken Intent Architect and use it within your environment. So I'm very excited to get your take on things today. Maybe we can just start with you telling us you could tell us a little bit around your development team, what you guys do on the technology front in a little bit more detail.
So TFG Infotec obviously has a vast technology landscape, but on the development front, we ultimately mostly a Microsoft shop. So we have a large landscape of .NET applications, and that is ultimately our primary development tool. Obviously, we are growing across other development tools at the moment, but saying that we're a Microsoft shop in the sense of that our primary integration is all run through BrizTalk. We have a large IIS Windows environment with a large Microsoft SQL footprint. But recently we've been moving more towards running workloads within containers inside OpenShift and switching from our integration BizTalk PubSub to event streaming on Kafka, and adding a large amount of new technologies around security and monitoring as we're moving forward.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting, the space that you guys are operating in. Maybe you could just tell us, what were the problems that you guys were facing, or some of these strategic initiatives that you guys had in place, in the software space before you brought Intent Architect in? So before we started having this conversation, what were some of the problems and strategic initiatives that you guys were facing?
So previously we've obviously had a wide spread of development teams supporting different aspects of TFG. On the development front, we look to standardize across how we delivered solutions for the business across our .NET landscape. So we were originally always building base templates to support our different development teams, trying to drive standards for better operational support and maintenance, and then just keeping teams aligned with new tech, trying to prevent teams from reinventing the wheel, spending time duplicating effort, and trying to get a lot of more reuse. So we've been building templates and frameworks for the past 15 years, and recently came across Intent Architect.
What kind of problems were you guys facing on that front?
So obviously with our templates from a delivery point of view, the start of a project always be, easily up and running. And I think what we struggled with was driving upgrades and new features and capabilities to our teams. So what it meant was our technical debt quickly grew, even though they started off with a good base. But as technology upgrades continued to improve, we struggled to get those through to our development teams on our legacy applications. So quickly our applications fell behind. Mm. And I think we were looking for a templating capability to help us manage driving new features and upgrades using something like Intent.
All right. Yeah. So I think that's a good point for me to ask you, so how did you guys, use Intent Architect to solve some of these problems?
Obviously, when we engaged with you guys, we looked at Intent with regards to obviously us moving forward into this new technology stack with OpenShift and moving it from .NET Framework, from the IIS Windows environment to .NET Core. And we had built a base template to support that new architecture with the frameworks. And when we engaged with you guys, we wanted to see that we could take that new template of ours and bring it onto Intent and help us drive that and onboard new teams across our relevant departments.
Okay, nice. And what was the value that you guys saw from the platform? I mean, now you've been using it for almost a year, and you guys obviously set a lot of these things up. What is the value that you really have seen Intent Architect bring to the table?
So I think when we brought on Intent and we put that base down, I think with it being a new technology stack, with being containers, .NET Core, we've started adding new features around security and monitoring and instrumenting our base kind of solution. We were forever growing, and while we've had people on Intent, we've been able to drive those changes and those updates and keep them relevant with where we are on the development front. And as we're bringing in different types of technologies or different types of patterns, it's made it so much easier for us to share that with the teams that are on Intent and leveraging our templates and our frameworks.
Yeah, great. And what has been, if you had to boil it down, what would you say has been the main benefit that Intent Architect has brought to your teams and organization?
Well, I think especially around the speed of delivery. So obviously we've been able to get up and running fairly quickly. Guys have been able to select specific modules that they want to use to leverage to build their solution out. And I think, with all the things that we've added to those to support our DevSecOps strategy around the pipelines, the monitoring, the instrumentation, the built-in security measures, all of those underpinning, unnecessary things that teams would have to build themselves, that time saving has been a huge benefit to us. But I think, we were always previously using templates, so we always had that. So I think the key benefit to us that we've identified was that the change in that when we've come up with issues or we've improved specific frameworks or patterns, we've been able to provide that through Intent with base upgrades that the teams have been able to leverage immediately, instead of previously on previous templates of ours that we were building, that we were having to manually retrofit those improvements, or they'd have to start again, or any new application would benefit from that, but previous ones wouldn't. So I think ultimately that's been our huge benefit for us from a time saving, and while with technology, it's forever changing, you're forever improving your frameworks or adding new features or patterns, and you're able to easily drive that through the applications that are hosted on Intent.
Great, yeah. And I mean, in terms of the standardization side of things, I mean, did you find that your team had improved standardization now with everything being, rolled out through patterns, through continuous code management?
No, sure. So yes, so obviously that as part and parcel of our templates was really putting that base scaffolding around the framework and the design, and which obviously makes everyone conform to a set standards, and it makes it easier as we shift software engineers across teams when picking up solutions. It all conforms to our standards and our patterns.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's something we hear. When we talk to a lot of guys in the space, we do really hear that very similar rhetoric around guys being able to move around a lot easier, the standards always being in place there. A lot of the, you could say the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And that's the guys more in your role. And I guess it'll be interesting to get your take on that. The guys in your role can know how the rest of the systems are running, in a sense, that that the certain important security measures are in place, the telemetry is in place, and that stuff's there. Has that been your guys' experience?
No, yes, definitely. I think, from our side, bringing on the teams onto our API has given us that visibility, because as part and parcel of this frameworks is all that telemetry and the monitoring and our code analysis that all get run through that. So it's part and parcel of that. So it's adhering to a lot of our KPIs and our measures that we try and put and give towards our teams. So all baked into our templates.
And I mean, the biggest difference there really being the fact that with Intent Architect, it's continuous, right? It's continuous code management in the space, means it's upgradable retroactively across the systems.
Yeah. So yes, and I think that what's really beneficial with that from our side is that as we add new features, that we can push those immediately through to the development teams, and just update our modules, and with a little bit of guidance around enabling those types of features and injecting those new patterns and modules into their actual existing code base, without them having to manually rework that or sit with them and have to inject it into their applications. So huge benefit with regards to, if you're accustomed to running with templates and building templates for your software engineers and for your development departments, Intent is a lifesaver with managing change, because with anything, templates change and improve, and you need to add additional features. And really, how do you get those features out to your development teams? I think that's where Intense is really strong on.
Yeah, and I mean, in your guys' environment, there's so many disparate teams, and you guys really have this huge responsibility of trying to bring those standards in across all of those teams. I mean, it's an almost impossible job. If you think about it, if you had to try and do it manually, you're sitting there trying to provide heaps of documentation or tasks and try, those kind of things. So I can imagine, being able to roll these things out across those teams is just so much easier for you guys.
No, definitely. And I think, if we look at what we've done with our templates within Intent, I mean, outside of building APIs and code snippets and samples, it's supporting our DevOps strategy with regards to our pipelines and how we build and deploy. So those are all pre-configured. It's looking at how we manage our database. So we bring in all our SQL standards within those templates and those frameworks. So ultimately, off the bat, building an API or an integration API or scheduling API through Intent, you're up and running in the matter of minutes with that API, with all of the DevOps pipeline to get it deployed into your environment across dev, test, and prod, as well as build your backend database. And ultimately, at the moment, yes, we're supporting SQL Express and SQL, but that's where we go and where we can grow on, supporting other different types of data stores. And as we improve in there, we're going to send those through Intent and provide the teams the capabilities to choose their data store. So the options that we've got with Intent and how we add our modules and our features is endless.
Yeah, great. I think one of the key questions here, Craig, for you is, and in your opinion, is would you recommend Intent Architect to other developers and organizations in the industry?
100%. I think, we've been building out our templates and libraries for, like I said, the past 10, 15 years for better reuse and driving standards and best practices. Intent Architect is a fantastic tool that helps you quickly and continuously allow your teams to benefit from the ongoing improvements and changes throughout the life cycle of the solution. Our struggles in the past were our static templates. And while they were great when you got started, after that, you quickly became outdated and your technical debt grew from there. If you didn't continuously evolve the solution based on, what we were driving manually. So, yes, 100%. Intent Architects, with being kind of in an area that was experienced with already using templates, I would definitely recommend Intent Architect managing templates going forward for any industry.
I did have one question for you. How have you found the support from the team in general in working with us as a team, with your team? How have you found that?
No, I think from the very start of the engagement, I think the support and assistance has been great. So, during the initial POC, the team, your team understood the template requirements that we had. And, you guys quickly produced a working template with an intent for us and, guided us through what you guys had created during the handover. Post POC, I think the intent team, was always willing and promptly assisting us in answering any of our questions and willing to take feedback and input into account for the future updates of the application. In a few occasions, like I said, we had the odd bug here that we found, but once we raised it with the intent architect team, they'd been prompted in rolling out a fix for it. All you guys understood the specific use case issue that we were trying to solve, and you guys would provide us a feasible workaround while the issue was either still being resolved. So overall, very positive, engaging feedback that we've had with you guys over the course of the last 12 months.
Great. Craig, just want to say thanks so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure catching up and getting your feedback on Intent Architect. So thanks again for coming.
Cool. Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, Skull.